promoting a healthy environment. It's the air we breathe. Clean, safe water. Responsible management of our natural resources. We protect and restore for a sustainable future. Environment matters.
It's a real example of what federal, state, local governments, private industry, and citizens do when they collaborate, cooperate, and figure out how to get things done.
A cleaned up West Virginia Superfund site gets a national award for excellence in site reuse from the EPA. Plus,
it was a very good year for us. We knew we had a good car, and I've got a great team of students.
The race is over, and it's a podium finish for West Virginia University's Eco Car 3 team. Mountaineers came from back in the pack to finish near the top of a 4-year-long automotive engineering competition. Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Environment Matters. I'm Jake Glantz. A long-term cleanup project in Fairmont is finally paying dividends. The former Sharon Steel Fairmont Coke Works site was honored recently by the EPA with an Excellence in Site Reuse Award.
Today is a good day for Fairmont. The City of Fairmont is fortunate to be celebrating the successes of this decades-long effort to remove toxic material from the former Sharon Steel industrial site, and by doing that, creating an area ready for future development. Looking at this wonderful brand new State Police Headquarters building is proof of what the results of this cleanup and redevelopment can be.
The new State Police Headquarters in Fairmont is just the first of what city leaders hope is a string of new development. The site, located off Lafayette Street in Fairmont, offers an additional 50 acres for future development in a prime location near Interstate 79. Up until 1973, the Sharon Steel Fairmont Coke Works processed coal into coke and refined coal tar products. Over the years, those processes contaminated the soil, surface water, and groundwater at the site. In 1996, it was added to the EPA Superfund program's National Priorities List, and 3 years later, the DEP, the EPA, the City of Fairmont, and other local partners entered into a Project XL agreement with ExxonMobil, the owners of the site. Project XL was an EPA national program developed to test innovative environmental management strategies to achieve better and more cost-effective environmental and public health protections. Work at the site focused on aligning cleanup and reuse priorities. The Sharon Steel Fairmont Coke Works site is the first Superfund site nationwide to be cleaned up under Project XL.
Today, EPA is recognizing organizations and individuals who have made it possible to build this beautiful facility on a formerly contaminated portion of the Sharon Steel Corporation Superfund site. EPA established the Excellence in Site Reuse Award to recognize those people and organizations who have gone above and beyond expectations in reusing and revitalizing formerly contaminated sites.
Awards were presented to ExxonMobil and Enzo Properties, the developer of the site, along with certificates of appreciation presented to the members of the Fairmont Community Liaison Panel for their input on the project.
It's a real example of what federal, state, local governments, private industry, and citizens do when they collaborate, cooperate, and figure out how to get things done. In a state with limited undeveloped land and highly treasured green space, brownfield revitalization has protected the citizens of our state, yet fostered economic development.
The EPA's Project XL program began in 1995 and accepted projects until 2002. According to the EPA, the agency ultimately developed over 50 environmental innovative pilot projects under Project XL. But the celebration of decades of cleanup work wasn't the only news coming out of Fairmont during the June 6th ceremony. Take a look.
I am very pleased to make an additional announcement today that EPA has selected the City of Fairmont for a $200,000 Brownfields Assessment Grant to provide environmental assessments on other properties which may be contaminated by hazardous or petroleum pollution. As many of you know, brownfields are sites where reuse and redevelopment are hampered by real or perceived contamination. The city will be able to use these grants to determine whether properties are contaminated and in need of cleanup from prior reuse. Cleaning up and revitalizing brownfields properties helps communities in many ways, including reusing existing infrastructure, cleaning up blight, putting properties back on local tax rolls, creating jobs, and providing economic opportunity for residents impacted by contaminated and abandoned properties in their neighborhoods.
It's a wonderful opportunity. And the money we received today from the EPA will enable us to assess more sites that may have some contamination issues, and we can deal with that in the future with some future brownfields grants to clean them up also.
Since 1998, over $18 million in EPA brownfields funding has been invested in West Virginia, including $2.8 million this year alone. The Brownfields program targets communities that are economically disadvantaged and provides funding and assistance to transform contaminated sites into assets that can generate jobs and spur economic growth. A nationwide study analyzing 48 brownfield sites found that spending roughly $12.4 million in assessment and cleanup produced an estimated $29 to $97 million in additional tax revenue generated for local governments in just a single year after cleanup. Another study found property values of homes located near brownfield sites that are cleaned up increased between 5 and 25% post-cleanup. Fairmont's Brownfields Assessment Grant will be used to conduct assessments over the next 3 years. It focuses on the city's riverfront, downtown, and university districts. Fairmont received 2 previous EPA Brownfields grants in 2005, which allowed the city to assess contamination levels at 15 sites. Another former West Virginia brownfield site recently received its certificate of completion from the DEP's voluntary remediation program, which confirmed the remediation is complete and clears the site for redevelopment and reuse. The former TS&T pottery site in Chester, West Virginia, which operated from 1900 through 1981 and stood abandoned and decaying for 30 years. The site was contaminated with lead, ceramic debris, and asbestos. It was purchased by the Business Development Corporation of the Northern Panhandle in 2011, which began demolition and remediation, and after 7 years of work, the site is now home to the Rock Springs Business Park. The 9-acre site is located along the Ohio River waterfront in Chester. The DEP's voluntary remediation program was established in 1996 to encourage companies, communities, and other stakeholders to voluntarily remediate contaminated sites and return them to productive use. Parties that remediate sites through the voluntary remediation program use risk-based cleanup standards that consider site-specific conditions and future land use. The program provides certain environmental liability protections under West Virginia law. For more information about the program, visit our website, dep.wv.gov. You'll find the VRP listed under the Office of Environmental Remediation. More than $50 million in economic development grants have been awarded for projects associated with abandoned mine lands in West Virginia. 15 projects in 12 counties will help fund projects like ATV trail camps and rail trail systems, expanded broadband access, extended water lines, as well as a variety of agricultural, aquaponics, and other business development projects designed to create jobs, increase tourism, and help promote a positive image of West Virginia. The grant funding is provided by the federal government through the Office of Surface Mining, Reclamation, and Enforcement, and is administered by the DEP's Office of Abandoned Mine Lands. The recipients applied for grant funding in 2016 and 2017 and were considered by a committee of representatives from the DEP, the West Virginia Departments of Commerce and Transportation, and the Governor's Office. An additional $25 million in grant funding will be awarded this year, with the winners announced as early as September. The economic development projects must be located on or adjacent to mine sites that ceased operations prior to August 3, 1977, the date of the signing of the Surface Mine Control and Reclamation Act. Final work to contain an underground mine fire in Preston County was completed late last year, but the DEP continues to keep a close eye on this site. The Broken Run fire near Newburgh had been smoldering for years underground before smoke and fumes escaping from cracks in the ground became a health concern for nearby residents. Since the burning coal seam was about 80 feet underground, it wasn't feasible, as with other underground fires we've told you about, to dig out and quench the burning material. Instead, the DEP worked to seal off and isolate the burning coal seam, cutting off the oxygen supply and smothering the fire. Contractors also injected special firefighting foam. The burning coal seam was also isolated with special concrete grout to fill in voids and create a barrier between the fire and the rest of the coal seam. The DEP has 11 monitoring wells on the site with temperature probes, which will allow inspectors to monitor underground temperatures and make sure the fire doesn't spread beyond its current containment. The fire caused underground temperatures to soar hundreds of degrees, and because the ground acts as a giant insulator, it would likely take years to completely cool off. Inspectors say it's possible on cool, wet days to still see steam rising from fissures in the rocks. The final cost of the project, $3.9 million. In auto racing, if you start near the back of the grid, that's usually where you finish. The DEP's Brianna Hickman joins us now with the story of a race with a much different result.
Jake, sometimes races are won or lost in the pits, and that's especially true in long races like the 4-year-long competition a team from WVU recently finished.
It was a very good year for us. You know, we knew we had a good car, and I've got a great team of students, both at the graduate and undergraduate level. But, you know, to be truthful, we were hoping to hold place.
But in the end, they did a little bit better than that. Of the 16 teams in the 4-year Eco Car 3 competition, WVU finished a disappointing 11th at the end of year 1, improved to 7th in year 2, and all the way up into 4th at the end of year 3. That's where they started the competition this final year.
And to move up to second place in year 4 is just demonstrates that, you know, putting a lot of hard work in will pay off. And you know, to have West Virginia University announced as the number 2 team, of course we'd love to have number 1, but Ohio State's going to be very hard to beat. A very big respect for their team and what they've been able to do. But yeah, so it's you know, it's that recognition. There are employers who invest heavily in EcoCar. If you look at the car and see all the sponsor stickers on it, these sponsors are looking for employees. And if they're looking for employees, you know, what schools are they going to look at for their employees? The top schools, right? And to be number 2 or top 6, you know, it provides the students that opportunity to have themselves looked at in a light where, hey, you know, this is one of the best teams with some of the best students.
The Mountaineers topped Virginia Tech, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech, among others, on their way to second place.
The thing that probably separated us from the rest of the pack was just how this team was able to take previous year's work and continue and work on everything that they started to come together to make the vehicle we wanted to make since year 1.
But getting there wasn't without its challenges, and it nearly ended early at General Motors' Yuma, Arizona proving grounds.
The first time we tried to run our emissions and energy consumption event, we actually did not finish it. We were having some issues with fuel economy with our engine, and we had run several events, but in order to fix the fuel economy issues, to be able to finish the emissions and energy consumption event, we had to reflash our supervisory controller, which by competition rules means we have to rerun any events that we had run previously. So we did that, and I'm proud to say that in a 24-hour period at GM Proving Grounds, we finished every dynamic event in 24 hours.
And then it was on to California to the Auto Club Speedway in Pomona, where NASCAR races. WVU's performance there qualified the team for the final dynamic test, a real-world road test through Los Angeles traffic.
And it was 170 miles of driving around highways and also some city traffic in Los Angeles. And only 7 teams finished that event. Unfortunately, 3 cars had some mechanical issues and broke down. But we were one of 7 teams, so at that point we knew that we were in good shape.
Finally, it all came down to presentations, a series of events detailing everything from the technical aspects of the build to sales and marketing strategies to entice potential customers to purchase a hybrid-powered muscle car. And in the end, that's what helped seal the deal.
Unbelievably happy. The one thing with my presentation I was very nervous about, and it was one of those things where I knew I needed to nail it, and I can say confidently that I did the best that I could. It was the best run I ever went through.
It's pretty surreal. I mean, to see all 4 years come together and finish the whole competition in second place is pretty great. And I mean, it all started with the people who started the program in year one, and we've changed people over the year, having about 120 students involved in the project, plenty of graduate students. So it was pretty amazing to see it all come together.
While EcoCar 3 has wrapped up, there's a new, as yet unnamed competition planned, and WVU has already submitted its entry proposal. We'll keep you posted on what happens next. For Environment Matters, I'm Brianna Hickman.
Thank you, Brianna. And for all you gearheads out there wondering how WVU's hybrid Camaro performed, it hit all of its competition requirements. Some of them are much higher than the stock vehicle. The 0 to 60 time was a couple of tenths slower, but project engineers say they're confident that with a little more engine tuning and some additional weight reduction, WVU's Echo Camaro could take the stock car in the quarter mile. The West Virginia Office of Energy recently hosted a conference on alternative energy sources. The conference showcased various initiatives of West Virginia organizations and companies that are exploring and implementing alternative energy sources in order to meet energy needs in a cost-effective and sustainable way, including wind, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency.
Well, this year we've actually done it a little bit different than years past. Typically we would rotate between a theme of energy efficiency and then a theme of renewable energy, but this year we combined those and added in transportation, just kind of a combination of all the forms of alternative energy that we deal with in our office, which we deal with all facets of energy, but the focus of this conference is specifically alternative energy. We're really excited to grow energy efficiency in West Virginia. That's really going to be our focus over the next year. I really feel like efficiency is at the core of all the other programs.
To find out more about the West Virginia Office of Energy, visit their website, energywv.org. 6 states, nearly 3,000 miles of shoreline, and thousands of volunteers. It all adds up to hundreds of tons of trash taken out of the Ohio River. The Ohio River Sweep is the largest one-day cleanup event in the whole country. The DEP's Mike Huff has more.
For nearly 3 decades now, volunteers have spent one Saturday in June picking up trash along the Ohio River shoreline. Today's cleanup in Huntington is one of nearly 20 cleanup sites from Hancock to Cabell County. The cleanup is organized every year by ORSANCO, the Ohio River Valley Water Sanitation Commission.
We've been doing the Ohio River Sweep for 29 years, and our volunteers have made incredible progress, but unfortunately there is still litter and there's still a need for this event.
Cleanup efforts along the West Virginia shoreline are coordinated by the DEP, which provides bags, gloves, and litter grabbers and arranges for pickup and disposal of all the collected trash.
I coordinated the supply requests and I sent out supplies for about 2,500 people, so there's great interest in it here in West Virginia alone. And then combined with the other states, there's a potential to do massive amounts of good, getting litter out of the landscape and keeping it out of our waterways and ocean.
The Ohio River Sweep averages about 8,000 volunteers each year and nets about 500 tons of trash. In the early years of the sweep, volunteers were finding large items, appliances, abandoned cars, even a sunken towboat. These days, the pickings are smaller, but no less important.
In recent years, we're finding a lot of plastics. So those convenience items that we all love and use, when they escape the trash management cycle, when we lose track of them in a parking lot, we're seeing a lot of plastics that make it to the Ohio River, unfortunately, and we need to collect those before they move on. The environmental impact of the plastics is if we don't collect them now, ultimately they will travel to the Mississippi and the ocean, and then they will break down and become more difficult to collect.
Unfortunately, we only recover about 5 to 10% of the plastic we produce. The rest ends up in landfills or the landscape, and from there into our waterways. Once in the water, plastic never fully biodegrades, but it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics, something less than 5 millimeters long and still able to cause problems for marine life.
Keeping plastics particularly out of the environment is a worthwhile thing to do. And probably that's one of the most important things to pick up, those and things like tires and rubber products, because they just don't break down as fast. I mean, we don't like to see waxed paper and, wood and organic stuff, but the real problem in terms of durability and longevity in the environment is plastic, certainly.
That coil of monofilament fishing line, scientists estimate it will take 600 years to break down in the environment. That plastic drink bottle, 450 years. That foam cup, 50 years. That plastic bag, 10 to 20 years. Nearly 100 volunteers showed up in Huntington for this year's sweep. Organizers say there's a strong turnout every year.
It shows that Ohio River Sweep has an amazing group of volunteers who understand the importance of the Ohio River and what a great resource it is right in our backyard. It provides drinking water, it provides recreation and industrial support, and River Sweep is a simple, easy event to spend a few hours and help clean the Ohio River.
It's the volunteers that make it happen. We couldn't do it without them.
In Huntington, I'm Mike Huff for Environment Matters.
The Ohio River Sweep is held every year in mid-June. To find out more, visit Orsanco's website, orsanco.org. The DEP's Make It Shine program also organizes an annual cleanup of the Kanawha River. This year's Great Kanawha River Cleanup is set for September 8th. Volunteers can participate at sites in all the counties bordering the Kanawha, from Gauley Bridge to Point Pleasant. The DEP is also looking into adding additional sites to this year's cleanup. So, if you have somewhere in mind, contact us at the link in the events section of our website, dep.wv.gov. You can also find out where to volunteer. Stormwater runoff. That's the stuff that washes into storm drains, streams, and rivers during a big rain event. Is one of the biggest sources of water pollution. There are several ways to reduce its impact, and one of them is adding a rain barrel. The DEP's Liz McCown joins us now with that story.
Jake, every year the DEP joins forces with the cities and watershed groups to host a series of workshops to show folks how easy and beneficial it is to install a rain barrel on their property. When it rains, it pours, and when it pours, you have stormwater runoff. Stormwater runoff is especially a problem in built-up areas with lots of impermeable surfaces, like roofs, streets, and parking lots, and that's where rain barrels come in.
There are multiple advantages to having rain barrels. There are environmental advantages. They help whenever it rains really hard. They help prevent us from having a major flush of all of the trash and the chemicals and stuff that's on our parking lots and on all our pavements from flushing that right into the river. They slow that down. There's also economic advantages. It's free water. It's water that hasn't been treated in any way. So, your vegetable garden and your flower gardens, they like that water better than what comes out of the pipes.
Rain barrels provide a reservoir for the part of the rain that flows off your roof. In a 1-inch rain event, the average house sheds around 700 gallons of water.
Every little bit does help. It's very important. A rain barrel of this size, which is 55 gallons, will fill up in about 8 minutes. That shows you how much rainfall we get in our environment, and just catching a little bit of it can go a long way.
Installing a rain barrel is a pretty easy process. Kits are available at many garden centers and home improvement stores. You can also find them online.
It is relatively easy. We host these workshops where we explain to people how to do it. It takes us about an hour to explain, but you can buy a rain barrel kit. It comes with instructions. All you need is a drill and a very, very little bit of hands-on skill. You buy a barrel, you drill 3 holes in it, and you drill 1 hole in your downspout. And that's the nice thing about the kits that we use, is that they don't require you to change your gutter system. You just plumb right into it.
People love the workshops. We try to make it really fun, we try to make it really casual, and we try to pump a lot of information into people and empower them to be environmental stewards in their own community. So we hope that they take the information that we give them and they go home and talk to their neighbors about it and people at their church or their 4-H group and try to spread this information so we can get everybody collectively working towards this issue.
Rain barrels are just one way to reduce the impact of stormwater runoff. There's a whole field of what's called green infrastructure, things like rain gardens and permeable pavers. The whole idea is to slow the runoff down so that it has time to be absorbed into the ground. For Environment Matters, I'm Liz McCown.
Thank you, Liz. Here at DEP headquarters in Charleston, one of the ways we help control stormwater runoff from our parking lot is with the rain garden. It's located on the west end of the lot and features native plants that help slow and absorb some of the runoff before it reaches the storm drain. You can find out more by visiting the resources, education, and outreach programs located under the Water and Waste section of our website, dep.wv.gov. On behalf of all of us here at the West Virginia DEP, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
More than 800 people with one mission, promoting a healthy environment. We are the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection.